Ladies and gentlemen, this is Candi Tikus inside the archaeological site of Tribhuvana, and it's supposed to be open at 7 a.m. in the morning, but as you can see, the gate is closed. The gatekeeper, that's the gatekeeper, he forgot to bring his keys this morning, and so he asked me to climb over this wall to get into this site, and almost forgot to get me to buy the ticket. Anyway, this is Candi Tikus, or Rat Temple. Now, unlike the rat temples in India, this particular so-called rat temple is not really a rat temple. So the reason why it's called Candi Tikus is because villagers were excavating. They found this colony of rats under the rocks and the soil and all that. So that's why they name it Candi Tikus. So nobody knows the purpose of this so-called temple. It's actually a pool. You can see the pool right in front there. Oh, the water is all gone, all dried up. There's supposed to be a pool inside there. So the original purpose of this structure, which dates back to Majapahit times, is not known. So what's the original name of this place is also not known. So because of this excavation process which discovered this colony of rats, they decided to call this place Candi Tikus. Interesting. Some guesses that this place is used as a bathing ground, as a place for royals to take their baths, or it could also be for recreational purposes for commoners like us, you know. But during Majapahit days, I think if the gatekeeper forgot to bring his keys, his head would probably fall off. Now, the local Javanese people were quite unfamiliar with their Hindu past, their Majapahit heritage, until the Europeans arrived. And it was Thomas Stamford Raffles, I'm sure you know who he is. He was the Lieutenant Governor of Java, and he discovered some of these ruins inside the thick forest in this area, which is called Tribhuvana. And then he called this the pride of Java. So it was only after the Europeans came that the local Javanese started tracing their roots back to Majapahit, which was the most powerful empire that Southeast Asia ever saw. In 1815, a group of Englishmen and Dutch translators who spoke Javanese went on a 3-month-long expedition to explore the fascinating island of Java. This expedition was organized soon after the leader, Lieutenant Governor Thomas Stamford Raffles, made a startling discovery in the previous year: Borobudur, one of the largest Buddhist monuments in the world. Raffles believed that there would be more of such ruins, pointing to a lost civilization unknown to the Muslim population of that time. The expedition began in April 1815. By June, they had reached the village of Lawang after stocking up on food supplies in the city of Surabaya. Locals informed them of the possibility of finding an abandoned building in the thick forest. Raffles ordered the jungle to be cleared, and true enough, they found a structure with a square base decorated with stone statues 10 meters high. As they uncovered more and more, they realized that they had stumbled on a palace, the royal residence of the Kingdom of Singasari. As the days went by, the expedition discovered more and more ruins constructed with the same style. Raffles called this the pride of Java, and concluded that that must have been a prosperous and sophisticated civilization that ruled Java centuries ago. Unfortunately, inscriptions on these ruins provided little evidence of the Singasari, Majapahit, and Kediri kingdoms, which prevailed some 300 to 500 years from then. There were statues of kings and queens, but what did they do? How did the kingdoms rise and fall? Despite his energy and enthusiasm, Raffles would never know the answer. He died in 1826 at the age of 44. A major breakthrough came almost 80 years later in 1894, when war broke out on an island 1,000 miles from Java. Lombok, the island to the east of Bali, had been a colony of Balinese Rajas since the 17th century. The local Sasak people were enslaved and often forced into hard labor. In November 1894, civil war broke out in Bali, and the Sasaks staged a mutiny in Lombok to avoid being conscripted to fight in Bali. The Balinese lords faced the full onslaught of the Dutch army, who took it upon themselves to restore law and order. 2,000 Balinese colonialists were killed, with many committing ceremonial mass suicide by charging into the Dutch army's line of fire. It's an irony that if the Europeans had not come, the Indonesians may never have discovered the greatness of their ancestors. I find it very funny when people stand in front of the British Museum and shout, 全都是中国的!
演员夏新宇说：“感谢大英博物馆将文物保护起来了，让我和我的后代能看到。
要是洋人没把它带走，今天一个都不剩了。” Alright, so finally someone brought the key. I thought I had to exit from the wall again. The mutineers set fire to the Balinese Raja's palace, and when the Dutch found out that they couldn't put out the fire, they ransacked the place to save the treasures, for their own keeping, of course. 230 kilograms of gold and 3,180 kilograms of silver were looted by Dutch soldiers. There were also numerous pieces of jewelry. Among the looters was a Dutch scholar by the name of Jan Laurens Andries Bernardis. Instead of cutting off gold and silver, Jan Bernardis grabbed all the bundles of palm leaf books he could find. These books would form the basis for the bulk of our knowledge of the mighty Majapahit Empire. It was an exciting time for Dutch researchers, but 2 world wars later, not much was revealed to the world. Publications of findings were also delayed, as the last thing that the Dutch wanted was for the Javanese to know the greatness of their ancestors. The most detailed, authoritative and accurate account of Majapahit would come from Willem Stutterheim, and his book was published after Indonesia's independence.
Bu, Bajang Ratu di mana? Terus belok kanan. Oh, jauh tak? Jauh tak? Tak. Oh, terus belok kanan. Terima kasih ya.
Alright, this is Bajang Ratu. The gatekeeper here is a little bit more responsible. He did remember to bring his keys. And the structure here is made up of red bricks, again during the Majapahit period. And this is the structure, very imposing. As you can see, this structure is not entirely original. A lot of the bricks here are new, and you can even see some cement deposited to keep the bricks together. It has been reconstructed in a way, not exactly restored. Now, if the Europeans had not come, a lot of the locals would have carted off the ruins to build up their own houses. They saw no value in all these ruins. It was only after the Europeans came that they began to see the value in preserving their Majapahit heritage. And here you can see a screen that is covering the original pathway to the structure. Another one of those original paths towards the structure. It's an incredibly laborious and creative way to construct an entrance, a grand entrance. Siapa nama adik?
Yafik.
Yafik?
Ya.
Oh.
Nama saya Alfian.
Okey.
Nama saya Gio.
Okey.
Aku kak.
Nama saya Chan. Chan.
Chan.
Kalau lupa ingat Jackie Chan. Ya.
Anda tahu Filipin? Kemana kak? Lain.
Barefooted. Oh, sepatu ni mana? Ha?
Kelas dari sekolah.
Tak sakit dah? Panas ya? Nanti panas.
Ya, biasa.
Biasa? Oh, pandai.
Jalan kaki ke sini.
Oh, okey. Mana sekolah? Belum nampak. Ha? Mana? Masih jauh?
Ya.
Wah, jalan kaki. Sehat. Oh.
Kuat. Ini MI. Ini sekolah MI. SPL.
Oh, bukan sekolah ini ya? Bukan. Oh. Ini ada pupils from the rival school. Okey, sampai sekolah.
Ayo masuk.
Masuk? Boleh masuk? Tak boleh masuk lah.
Dadah.
Dah.
Bye bye. Sampai jumpa lagi.
Sampai jumpa lagi.
Stop.
Okay, so here's the school.
Hey.
To tell a complete story, we can't begin at the beginning, but before the beginning. One day in 1128, a farmer's wife ran across a paddy field to break the news to her husband that she had been impregnated by the Hindu god Brahma, and she would soon give birth to a deity. The farmer believed that his wife had been cheating on him. They had a big fight, and soon he died mysteriously. Word got around the village, and the wise men concluded that the woman was pregnant with the demon's child. The baby was abandoned at the graveyard after he was born. a man who did not believe that the child was a demon, brought him home and raised him. The boy was named Ken Arok, and he proved to be a menace, just as the wise men had predicted. After falling deep in debt, he went to hide in the forest and led a life of banditry. One day, while roaming the streets of Singasari, he accidentally ran into a beautiful pregnant woman and fell madly in love with her. Her name was Ken Dedis, and she was the wife of Tunku Ametung, landlord of Singasari. Ken Arok decided that he must have Ken Dedis, even though she was carrying Tunku Ametung's child. Ken Arok went to the blacksmith to forge a kris meant to kill Tunku Ametung, but he had a devious plan. He presented the beautiful weapon to his friend Kibo Hijo and let him show it off to everyone in the city. He then broke into Kibo Hijo's house, stole the kris, stabbed Tunku Ametung with it while he was sleeping, and left the weapon at the crime scene. Everyone recognized the kris as Kibo Hijo's weapon and accused him of murder. Before he could explain, Ken Arok killed him and declared that he had avenged Tunku Ametung's death. He then promised to look after Ken Dedis. She agreed to marry him on the condition that he must treat her unborn child as his own. Ken Arok gave his word. Soon a baby boy was born. He was named Anusapati. Not satisfied with being just a governor of the city of Singasari, Ken Arok set his eyes on the neighboring Kediri kingdom. Claiming to be of divine birth as his mother slept with a deity, he raised an army and went into battle with Kediri in 1221. Kediri was defeated and Ken Arok crowned himself King Rajasa of Singasari and Kediri. Traders arrived from China and the Rajasa dynasty prospered. By then, Ken Arok, or King Rajasa, had already fathered 9 children, 8 with his queen Ken Dedis and 1 with a concubine. Anusapati grew up thinking that Ken Arok was his father, but it was also obvious to him that the king favored his younger brothers. One day in the year 1227, Anusapati confronted his mother, who told him the truth. By then, she was full of hatred for Ken Arok and handed Anusapati the kris that had killed his father. Anusapati then ordered a servant to kill the king, and before the servant could be arrested, Anusapati accused him of murdering the king and killed him. Queen Ken Dedis was filled with guilt. She had married a murderer and covered up for his crime in order to be queen, but her actions had caused her eldest son to suffer unequal treatment. She stepped into the funeral pyre during Ken Arok's funeral and got cremated together with the man who claimed to be the offspring of a deity. Anusapati succeeded Ken Arok as king of the Rajasa dynasty. By then, Anusapati was aware that his younger stepbrothers were a constant threat to his rule. They called him a bastard king, as only they had King Rajasa's blood. Normally paranoid, King Anusapati let his guard down during a sports event, and his half-brother Mahisa Wong Ating stabbed him with their cursed family heirloom. Yes, that same kris with a murderous streak in the family. Another stabbing incident occurred with the youngest prince, Gunung Bahaya, rising to the throne, only to be overthrown by his half-brother, Tojaya, son of a concubine. In spite of all the new security measures, he too was assassinated in 1250. Anusapati's son, Wisnuwardana, was crowned the new king, and his cousin, Narasingamurti, would be the deputy king. Wisnuwardana built a temple in honor of his father, Anusapati. It was Candi Kidal, situated at Tumpang near Malang. To ensure that nobody could challenge their heredity and legitimacy, Wisnuwardana married a cousin who was the biological granddaughter of Ken Arok and Ken Dedis. The royal couple had a brilliant son by the name of Kertanegara, whose legitimacy to the throne would go unchallenged. Wisnuwardana would die an old man in 1268. He was also the first Rajasa king to die on natural causes. Candi Jago was built near Malang in his honor. Under the rule of Kertanegara, Wisnuwardana's son, Singasari grew into a prosperous city. Chinese merchants started arriving to trade with Singasari. Kertanegara's palace received hints that the Chinese emperor had moved his troops to capture Champa, Burma, and Dai Viet. The Singasari kingdom could be next. In 1282, Kertanegara started sending diplomatic missions to China, and soon after that conquered Bali, followed by South Sumatra. In 1290, the Chinese lost their patience with Kertanegara and sent an envoy to his palace with demands for tribute and a member of his family to be held hostage in Peking to ensure his obedience. Kertanegara lost his temper. He ordered the envoy's nose to be cut off and sent him home. Yuan dynasty's Kublai Khan was furious and swore to punish Kertanegara. Over 2 years, 1,000 warships were built and 20,000 soldiers led by 3 admirals were organized. Kertanegara knew that the emperor would take revenge. He ordered a fleet to sail out to subjugate the Melayu kingdom in Sumatra to gain a bargaining chip in case Kublai Khan invaded. At this moment, a man called Jaya Katwang, the governor of Kediri, a city to the west of Singasari, was thinking of taking advantage of the decrease in troop numbers in Singasari. His small army was no match for Kertanegara's army, but he decided to give them a surprise. Sounding drums and trumpets, he sent a small force to attack Singasari from the north. Kertanegara sent his commander, who was the son of Jaya Katwang. The young man did a good job of fighting back the Kediri invaders. Just when they thought the battle was over, the main force of the Kediri army attacked them from the south. Not only that, Jaya Katwang's son switched sides and further weakened Singasari's defenses. The city was soon in flames. Instead of fleeing, Kertanegara had faith in his divine powers and tried to vanquish the invaders with magic and prayers. He was killed by the Kediri forces. His loyalists fled from the palace under the son of Prince Narasingamurti, Raden Wijaya. Hunted down by the Kediri forces, he led the remnant forces of Singasari to sail across the north coast of Java to the island of Madura. The island was then run by one Wiraraja, who was a sly, double-crossing governor. In fact, it was Wiraraja who coaxed Jaya Katwang to seize the opportunity to attack Singasari. The crafty Wiraraja put in a good word for Raden Wijaya and persuaded him to surrender to Kediri. Raden Wijaya did as he was advised, and Jaya Katwang, who killed his cousin in Singasari, welcomed him with open arms. To keep him under close watch, Raden Wijaya was confined to the palace in Kediri, while his men were sent to live in the forest 40 kilometers northeast of Kediri. The surviving servants of the now defunct Singasari kingdom went to work immediately, clearing forests to grow crops and start a village going. While working, the residents picked a wild fruit called a maja from the trees. It turned out to be bitter, so they named their village Majapahit. Singasari residents displaced in the recent war began to gather there. The village grew into a town, and the town grew into a city, hidden from Jaya Katwang, who was busy watching Raden Wijaya. Meanwhile, in Madura, Weiraraja was displeased with Jayakatwang for not rewarding him for helping him destroy Singasari. He saw an opportunity for revenge when he spotted a Chinese fleet in the year 1293. When the Chinese came ashore, they were astonished to find Singasari in ruins. Their arch enemy, Kertanagara, was gone.
Ini Raja Kertanagara.
Yang mana ini?
Ya.
Ya.
Oh.
Weiraraja got permission to take Raden Wijaya out hunting, but brought him for a conference with the Chinese admirals instead. The Chinese could not return to Peking empty-handed. Raden Wijaya offered to help them sack Kediri and cut off their treasures and princesses. The Chinese admirals agreed and combined forces with Majapahit to attack Kediri. Legend had it that Jayakatwang used magic to escape. His body was probably never found. After Kediri was defeated, the Chinese admirals looted the palace and got the men to load the treasures onto the ships docked off the coast of Java. Meanwhile, they demanded for Singasari princesses as the Kediri princesses had all been killed. Raden Wijaya refused and a fight broke out. The Chinese retreated as it was the tail end of the monsoon, and they would have had to wait a year on unfamiliar grounds even if they could somehow outmaneuver Raden Wijaya's forces. With the Chinese gone, Raden Wijaya was finally able to make it official. He married the 4 daughters of the late cousin Kertanagara and proclaimed himself King of Majapahit. Of the 4 princesses, Queen Gayantri stood out as the most assertive. She was also the only Buddhist in her family. Though Majapahit achieved some level of prosperity under Raden Wijaya, he ended up having to fight his former comrades and also the cunning Weiraraja. 16 years on, Raden Wijaya fell ill and died. His son, the weak and indecisive Jayanagara, took over. Under Jayanagara's rule, Bali went independent and a rebellion was started. Coming to the king's rescue was a palace guard by the name of Gajah Mada. This commoner would rise in the ranks to become the most prominent figure in Majapahit history, overseeing the golden age of the most powerful empire in Southeast Asia. To be continued in the next video.